First on the agenda, updates or approval of agenda. Any updates or changes to the agenda for today? I'll accept a motion to approve it. Dan moves approval of the agenda for the September 12th, 2023 Municipal Planning Commission meeting. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, now we'll discuss the minutes of the August 8th, 2023 meeting. Any discussion? Omissions? Errors? Michelle moves approval of the minutes from the August 8th, 2023 meeting as presented. All those in favor? Carried. So first thing today, we have Jans and Builders who are not in attendance as of yet. Will they be in attendance?
Yes, they will.
Okay. All right, so let's start off with the planners report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The September 2023 Planners Report is presented for your information. Happy to take any questions, as well as the draft municipal development plan has been attached for the MPC's information as well. So we apologize for the long scrolling today, but there's a lot of information in there. And the municipal development plan will be coming back for council to next Tuesday's meeting with further proposed amendments. So any questions, I'm happy to answer.
So these are just the initial amendments? There will be more on top of this?
Yeah, correct. The original direction for the municipal development plan when council adopted the original MDP, this one, was to insert a 3.2 kilometer radius to protect future residential growth from confined feeding operations. And the feedback received from the public hearing and council's discussion last week is that those considerations are better left to the NRCB through their minimum distance of separation, and so we'll be bringing back revisions to reflect that direction, as well as further direction relating to access to CFOs from roads.
Okay. Any other discussion? Go ahead, Michelle. Sorry.
Is there any update on from the AUC with the changes for to shut things down, that they aren't accepting any new applications? And then they were, and that stuff.
Yeah, since that time I haven't received anything new from the Utilities Commission. Doesn't look like anyone else has yet either. So the last update that we received is that they are still processing new applications. However, they're only taking them forward to the hearing stage, and they're not doing any sort of approvals at this time.
And they haven't reached out to us yet because that was part of it, that they would reach out to municipalities and ask for our thoughts on how it currently proceeds. And so we have a long list of things that we feel that would better the process. And so if you have an idea that you believe that would better the process, such as reclamation or those type of things, then please forward that to Kayleen, and we'll put it on the list. So we're going to be prepared for when they reach out, because they said when they did the moratorium or whatever they called it, that they would be reaching out to municipalities for input.
So this delays only till January, February? So they better get on it if they're going to, because that time's ticking if they want input, right? Because to have input and to review that input and have a consultation, that's a pretty tight timeline. Okay.
So at the Mayors and Reeves meeting on Friday, Newdorf was there, and he's the one in charge of this. And they said that they recognize how tight it is and how much they're trying to do. And they're just about to the area where they're going to come out to us. They're trying to get all their ducks in a row to have everything prepared first. So they recognize how deep it is and what it's going to take. But I do have a question for the planner. On the traffic assessment on the 120, have we got any update on that for the church over there?
Yeah, so staff has been continuing to work with Haven House Church on the submission of their impact assessment. I confirmed that they have retained their engineer, and the engineer has committed to having the impact assessment to us by the 20th of September, which is the deadline. And then we'll have opportunity to review as well as Alberta Transportation. The other thing that we've been following up on also is the requirement for occupancy and the safety codes permits, and they're on track to obtain those as well.
Thank you. I'll accept a motion to approve the planner's report as presented. Nigel moves approval of the planner's report. All those in favor? Carried. Are there any applications today that will not be attending, to your knowledge? Everyone will be here. Okay. Mr. Monroe, you're not here for any... Oh, okay. Do you have a song or dance or poem or anything? Okay. Next week? Well, we'll be expecting a song and dance at the next meeting, right? Good deal. I guess we'll await our 10:15.
When's the wedding?
Next Sunday, 24th.
Did you get your board all done? The wall?
Yeah, yeah.
Did you paint it?
No,
Oh,
I won.
I think you should have painted it.
I mean, I'm a real fan of this like retro antique kind of look, and then it's just like a slap in the face to ask me to paint it after I go to all the work to try and make this retro look, right? So,
It would have been so nice painted.
yeah,
An oil base.
oil base, yeah, something light.
You see what I gotta deal with.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
Oh.
All right. I will call, well, the meeting's still in order, so I will, is there a representative here for subdivision, Development Plan 23-150, Jansen Builders? Would you take one of the chairs up front, please? Not sure if you've been in before, but there's a red button you push to talk. On the mic? So when you're ready to talk, we'll just, yeah. You can. Okay, so this is Development Application 23-150. Go ahead, Aaron.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The proposal is for two additions. One addition is 239 square feet, which is a hallway addition, and the second addition is a three-season room, which is about 672 square feet. The proposal will be built in two phases. The reason why we're bringing this application to Municipal Planning Commission is because the front setback that is proposed is within 40 meters of the center line of Township Road 130. So it's a relaxation of about 8.4 meters, about 27.6 feet. And this is beyond the 10% variance that the development officer has discretion to approve. Due to this reason, obviously, we're taking this to Municipal Planning Commission. Township Road 130 is dust abated to the entrance of 7102 Township Road 130. Beyond the entry point, the municipal roadway has a gravel surface. This application was circulated to our Public Works Department, and no objections were received. As such, the development officer recommends that this application be approved by the Municipal Planning Commission. As I mentioned previously, for the A2 Agriculture District, that states the minimum required front setback from the center lane of a municipal roadway is 40 meters, 131.2 feet. The proposed setback of 31.6 meters, 103.7 feet, results in a relaxation of about 8.4 meters, which is a 21% relaxation of bylaw 22/09 requirements. And regarding the tri-area IDP, this proposal, the subject site is outside the boundaries of the IDP. So we're recommending approval, and the specific condition that relates to this site would be number 10, which would be approving a setback relaxation of 8.4 meters from the center line of roadway 130. Conversely, MPC does have the choice to refuse DP 23-150 because it doesn't meet the front setback requirements for the Agriculture 2 district of Land Use Bylaw 22/09. And I do have some photos to show for this site. So I went to the site, and that's the subject dwelling on the site, the driveway. And the next picture, we're looking west towards where the additions are proposed to be built. Then the next photo, we're showing the proposed addition site. We're looking east, so it'll be going on the side of the garage there. And we're looking east again. Then we're looking west. Township Road 130 is over to the left. And we're looking south. And south again. And west. And the proposed site is behind us to the right. And this is Township Road 130. So here's showing the graveled surface. And then the next picture again is another picture of the looking northwest of the subject's site, the subject dwelling where the addition is proposed to be constructed. And that's about it for photos. That concludes my presentation, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, that was quick. Mr. Johnson, do you have anything to speak to on your application?
The existing house is there, so we're not going any closer to the roadway than the existing house is right now. So they're basically, the walkway addition is just joining the house area to the garage area, to basically an attached garage so that they can have a heated entrance into their like to park the car and then to come into the house. So other than that, and then the other part of the addition is I believe would be pretty close to the full distance away from the center line of the Township Road 130. So, yeah, if you guys have any questions other than that, but that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any discussion? Michelle, go ahead.
Was there setback relaxation for the house when it was put there?
Through the chair, the house was built quite a long time ago, so I believe the rules were different at that point.
Okay, Dan moves approval of development application 23-150 with conditions as presented. All those in favor? Lloyd moves approval. Did I say Dan? Yeah. Okay, correction. Lloyd moves approval.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, I don't see any problem with it.
Okay. All right, carried. So your development permit has been approved, subject to meeting the conditions which were presented today. The county will mail you a copy of your development permit. Since this is a discretionary use, there will be a 3-week appeal period that the public may appeal the issuance of this permit. The development permit will be advertised in the Cypress Courier newspaper for a duration of 3 consecutive weeks. If there is no appeal filed within 21 days of from the date of issue, the development permit will become valid at that time. If you have any further questions, you can contact the development officer to discuss them after today's meeting. Thank you, Mr. Jansen.
Thank you for your time.
Is there a representative here from Global Ramac? Sir, what are you here for?
Trent Ersman, I'm here for subdivision out in off of 51A.
Oh, 1115?
Yeah, about that, yeah. That's what they told me to be here. I just came a little early.
Would you like to have your application subdivision discussed now?
I'm good with that.
Okay, all right. Would you like to take one of the chairs up front, please? I'm not going to rush you, I don't. Maybe this was your excitement for the day, I don't know. And take that from. Okay, good, awesome. Okay, so this is subdivision application 23CY10. Becky, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And there's just a typo on there. It's actually 23CY11. So I'll just correct that. And this is for the owner of the property is Trent Ersman and was applied for by Global Ramac Surveys on their behalf. The location is along Range Road 51A, approximately 3 kilometers south of Highway 41A and approximately 3 kilometers west of Highway 41. And the legal description is southeast 23-12-5 west of the 4th. This is a country residential subdivision. And the proposal is to subdivide a 5.05 hectare parcel from a previously subdivided quarter section to create 3 separate titles. So this application is intended to subdivide 5.05 hectares or 12.5 acres to create 3 separate titles. The agricultural title contains dry land pasture and is 12 hectares or 29.78 acres in size. The applicant intends to sell the newly created parcels and construct a residence for himself on the remnant lands. The property is located along Range Road 51A, directly adjacent to an existing multi-parcel country residential subdivision, and there are no oil or gas wells in proximity to the proposed subdivision. The proposed area will have no alternative but direct and immediate access from Range Road 51A, and the applicant is proposing a 30-meter wide separation between 2 of the proposed parcels for access to the remnant agricultural lands. The developer intends to service the proposed subdivision lots with private on-site sewage disposal fields and tanks, and to provide a water well on each parcel for domestic purposes. The proposed development area is relatively flat. However, a creek runs through the northwest boundary of the lands. Alberta Environment has provided draft flood reports that confirm the proposed subdivision area lies outside of the 1 in 100 year floodplain. The developer will also be required to submit a stormwater management plan in support of the development to alleviate lot grading and drainage concerns. The existing yard site, which will be contained within the proposed Lot 1, contains a residence, a 40 by 70 garage, and an attached 60 by 140 riding arena, and 2 small sheds, which were approximately 5 by 10. The applicant has indicated that the riding arena will be removed from the property and relocated to the remnant agricultural title if the subdivision is approved. Cypress County Council recently approved a land use reclassification to Country Residential District 1 to allow the proposed subdivision to be in compliance with the Municipal Development Plan policies. A residence could still be developed on the remainder of the agricultural title, and the proposed subdivision is within the rural development area of the Tri-Area Intermunicipal Development Plan boundary. So under some legislation, the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan states that municipalities are to identify their agricultural land and limit fragmentation and conversion to non-agricultural uses. Under the implementation section of the plan, Section 5, Efficient Use of Land, it states that the land use framework promotes approaches to reduce the amount of land that is taken up by permanent or long-term development by utilizing the minimum amount of land necessary. Section 6661 of the Municipal Government Act states that a subdivision authority may require the owner of a parcel of land that is subject of a proposed subdivision to provide reserve. Money in place of municipal reserve is recommended on the subdivided parcel. Part 2.9, Road Access of the Subdivision Regulations of the Municipal Government Act states that every proposed subdivision must provide direct access to a road or lawful means of access satisfactory to the subdivision authority to each lot that is created. Section 2.10, Rural Development Area of the Tri-Area Intermunicipal Development Plan states that the intent of the area is to allow for a variety of land uses that capitalize on the natural attributes of the area where they are compatible with existing land uses, provide on-site sewage disposal systems, and do not require large volumes of potable water. This includes general agricultural operations, excluding CFOs, multi-parcel country residential farmsteads, and home occupations. Multi-parcel country residential development in this area is preferred to other residential uses. Reduced residential parcel sizes are encouraged to retain the balance of agricultural, extensive recreational, and/or other open space. Section 4.1.24 subdivision in the Tri-Area IDP of the Municipal Development Plan states that the county shall follow all applicable policies within the Tri-Area IDP related to subdivision of the lands within the Tri-Area IDP boundary. Under the Country Residential District 1 in the Land Use Bylaw 2022-09, it states that the maximum total area of an accessory building is 1,600 square feet, and that the total area of all accessory buildings is not to exceed 2,800 square feet. It also states that the minimum setback requirement from the side property line is calculated to be 19 meters or 62.3 feet. And utility easements may be required between the proposed parcel and the remainder of the agricultural title. So we circulated the application and received responses. So Cypress County Finances replied that the proposed subdivision lots will be subject to a special tax private dust control. We will need to designate the dust control patch to align with the dust control policy. The planning supervisor replied that the proposed subdivision to create 3 country residential titles complies with the rural development area of the Tri-Area Intermunicipal Development Plan. If the proposed subdivision is to be approved, it would be recommended that the Municipal Planning Commission consider the requirements for a drainage plan to be submitted to Cypress County for approval, as well as for the submission of hydrology report prepared by a qualified individual, confirming that there is both quantity and quality of water capable of supplying domestic water to the proposed subdivision lots. It is anticipated that the developer will provide information to the Municipal Planning Commission with respect to the existing accessory buildings, which are contained on the parcel, which may result in additional approval conditions being required. TELUS Communications replied that they have no objection to the proposed subdivision. Apex Utilities replied that they have no objection to the proposed subdivision as described. They wish to advise that any relocation of existing facilities will be at the expense of the developer, and payment of contributions required for new gas facilities will be the responsibility of the developer. Fortis replied that they have reviewed the plan and determined that no easement is required. Fortis Alberta is the distribution wire service provider for this area. The developer can arrange installation of electrical services for the subdivision by making an application through Fortis Alberta. Cypress County Public Works replied that the approach permits are required for each proposed parcel as well as the remnant lands. In addition, the original access approach should be changed to allow for improved sightlines. City of Medicine Hat Environment, Land, and Government Relations Department replied that they have provided a map displaying the gas facilities within proximity to the proposed subdivision and offers the following comments. Surface improvements are not permitted within the City of Medicine Hat pipeline utility right-of-way and within 100 meters of any City of Medicine Hat wellhead, unless the subdivision or landowner applies to and receives approval from the Alberta Energy Regulator and the city for a setback reduction. And any ground disturbances or surface improvements within 30 meters of any City of Medicine Hat gas pipeline or within 100 meters of any gas wells require a crossing or proximity agreement. The town of Redcliffe replied that they have reviewed the proposed subdivision as forwarded and offers no comments. The City of Medicine Hat replied that the subdivision appears to be consistent with the IDP in that it does not exceed 30 parcels per quarter section, and there are no conflicts with the sand and gravel area proximity. And the Cypress County assessor provided a market value assessment rate of $28,156.15 per hectare for money in place of municipal reserve purposes. And at the time of writing this report, no comments or objections were received from any of the adjacent landowners. So before my recommendation, I just took a couple pictures of the site because of the existing accessory buildings.
Sorry, just give me one moment.
Go on, sorry.
She's just pulling up some pictures for you. So this is from Range Road 51A looking east towards the existing multi-parcel subdivision. And the proposed subdivision area is to the left of us. And so this is then looking west on Range Road 51A. Of course, the subdivision is to your right now. So here we're looking at the existing accessory buildings. So I labeled the portion that would be removed, which is of course the larger portion that was used as a riding arena, I believe, and the smaller portion to remain at the other end. And just another shot of what's staying there. And that's just looking north. I guess that would kind of capture the subdivision and the remnant agricultural property. So my recommendation is approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, the developer is required to make a payment to the county for money in place of municipal reserve for 5.05 hectares at a rate of $2,815.61 per hectare, being 10% of the appraised market value of $28,156.15 per hectare. The payment is to be submitted to the county prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta Land Titles. Number two, the developer is required to obtain approval from Cypress County Public Works for the construction of 4 new access approaches to each lot being created from Range Road 51A. The approaches are to be constructed to Cypress County standards prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta Land Titles. The developer is responsible for the removal of the 60 by 140 riding arena from Lot 1. Evidence of the removal must be provided to Cypress County prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta Land Titles. The developer is responsible to obtain a development permit from Cypress County for the relocation of the 60 by 140 riding arena prior to commencement of the relocation. Number 5, a size relaxation of 1,200 square feet is granted for the existing 40 by 70 garage that is to remain on Lot 1, and a size relaxation of 100 square feet for the total square footage of all accessory buildings. If the accessory buildings are ever to be moved or replaced, they will need to conform to the current size restrictions of the land use bylaw, unless otherwise varied by the Cypress County Development Authority. Number 6, a setback relaxation of 11.6 meters or 38 feet is granted from the proposed side property line of Lot 2 for the existing 40 by 70 garage. If the garage is ever to be moved or replaced, it will need to conform to the current setbacks of the land use bylaw unless otherwise varied by Cypress County Development Authority. Number 7, the developer is required to submit an engineer's designed stormwater management plan to accommodate a 1 in 100 year event for the entire development area. The stormwater management plan is to be submitted and approved by Cypress County prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta Land Titles. Number 8, the developer is required to submit a hydrology report prepared by a qualified engineer to prove quality and quantity of the proposed water source. The report is to be submitted and approved by Cypress County prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta Land Titles. And lastly, as our standard condition, the developer is required to supply copies of any utility right-of-way plans, easements, and/or agreements which are to be registered as a requirement for any affected utilities to Cypress County prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta Land Titles. And that is my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Becky. Mr. Harrisman, would you like to speak to your application at this time?
Actually, everything she said, like the easement for number 1 to put in a new road there because of the line of sight, we had already planned all that, and everything she said we kind of already had planned in the first place. So I'm good with whatever you guys want to do next.
Okay. I have a couple points of clarification here. So the parcel to the north with the access roads, that block 1, that's not currently part of the parcel, right? Is that a different parcel?
Where is that?
So we're creating 4 titles, not 3.
We're asking for three parcels, and then the remnant lands become the agricultural lands to the north.
So there'll be 4 titles.
There will be, yeah.
That was because it got a little confusing because on page 7 it shows a black line instead of a red line. So that's still proposed to be the lot line for the southwest lot?
Yes, the 17 acres to the north of the 3 lots, that's all going to stay the agriculture, and that's what I'm going to keep myself.
I'm just looking for a point of clarification from Becky on on that page. It shows us a black line. Is there a reason for that? Is that because it's pending removal of the arena?
Yeah, sorry, and I didn't notice that. This is a revised plan that we just received, and it was to show the setback distances for us for those buildings. So yeah, that line should still be red.
Okay, so there's 3 lots there now. Okay.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, I was going. Okay, is this 3 lots? 1, 2, 3, or is it 4 lots? Because it said 3 titles, and there's actually going to be 4 titles. Okay. All right, I'm clear now. Are there any water? Is there a water license for that property?
Yeah, there's a 17-acre water rights from the creek, and that'll stay with the agricultural. And there is, we have found water for water wells on that site that does not go to any of the other parcels of land. It just literally goes through my land, and from one, I guess you would call it a natural spring to another natural spring on either side of the lot that I bought.
So you have 17 acre feet from the Ross Creek?
Yes, I have a 17-acre water rights from the Ross Creek.
The water license from the creek. I know I confuse the lots too.
Yeah, however you want to say it. Yeah, I got the water rights or water license for that.
Okay. So there's enough land there to irrigate should you choose to?
Yes.
Okay. Because typically, we don't allow subdivision of lands with water rights, but this is a water license, so we should be consistent with our previous decisions, right? Okay.
But the water rights stay with the 17 acres, so it's the agricultural part, so that the water rights stay to
Okay, the water license,
water license.
yeah. Okay. Because, yeah, water rights are attached to the title, water license is a separate permit from the creek. So we're clear and consistent on that then. Okay, all right, that was my concern. Do you know what position that water license is?
I don't know what you mean by that.
Like, so there's first, second, third,
No, sir, I don't, not offhand.
okay. All right. I mean, it's irrelevant, but I just want to make sure that the potential for irrigation is still, is still available once this subdivision is approved and we're not going to lose any potentially irrigated land.
No, because the top 17 acres or whatever is what I plan to use as my farm and stuff like that, and I plan to use that as well to grow everything on there.
So how do you plan on irrigating that?
I'm actually just going to use, I was just thinking of using a small pump with some tubing, and because what me and my wife want to do is do, for agriculture type stuff, more fruits and fruit trees, gardens, nut trees, all that kind of stuff. So just want to do it through that way.
Now, you can see an old oxbow there in dark green. Is that, so is that land, so if somebody wanted to come in and put a pivot up, could a pivot cover that parcel? No, it's because of the topography there?
You're talking about from the creek, there's the little bowl inside.
Right, yeah, that green, dark green. So that,
That dark green there is about 30 feet lower than to the east of that. And that's where, the only place where you can build is on the 30 feet on that one side. Like, okay. So right there to here, it's about 30 feet lower than here and all across here. Because this is where the creek, or I don't know what you call it, water runoff is. And this is just a low spot where you can't have any buildings that are permanent standing, because if you had a thing like 2010, they would get washed away. So in here is just, if you want to grow something, but it's I believe I calculated it out to be about 6 to 8 acres, I believe, of low spot where you can't build anything permanent. But the other stuff up here, this is all way higher. And I have pictures, or actually this fella up here who runs all the buffalo through this area here, he had pictures of that 2010 water thing, and the water never made it within 10 feet of the top of that berm. Whereas it actually went into his yard and was halfway up his windows.
so one concern I have then is that the topography of the land would not permit 17 acres to be actually properly irrigated, right?
Oh, no, you can still irrigate that. I suppose I should turn this on. You can still irrigate that low spot, but you can't build anything permanent on there. Like you could irrigate it for whatever you wanted to plant down there, and same with the top. You could literally irrigate the whole area, but you'd have to do it in, what they have out there now is more of not the pivots, but the former owners left us a pump with more of, what would you call it, more of a flooding irrigation type system. And for me, I would just, I plan to do something a little differently and just kind of run a couple of, like the PVC hose and have it set off that way so I can irrigate what needs to be irrigated and not what doesn't.
So that the irrigation system you're inheriting, would it have irrigated part of that area to the south that you're subdividing now?
No, actually, it would, it could have, but what they irrigated was right through here. Up in the back here, through here. The actual pump is right there, and then it goes up here, and right here you can see a little bit of lines. That's the irrigation pipe, right there, and they run it in through here, up and through the back here. Is where they irrigated it.
So they didn't irrigate 17 acres then?
Not completely from what, honestly, I don't know what they irrigated, because the guy that we bought it from hadn't used it in over 8 to 10 years. So I don't know exactly what he irrigated and what he didn't, because the stuff looks old enough and some of it's rotten. I plan to use it to do at least 15 acres if this goes through. I want to grow some stuff out there.
So that creek doesn't run sufficient enough to irrigate all summer long, does it?
No, and that's the reason why I don't want to, like, he has, like, his, sorry. He has his pipings that are about yay big, which they would have used and which I don't want to use because I don't believe I need to use that much water. I know it says something like I'm allowed 16,000 gallons of water or something like that. But I won't need to use that much because the low spot there, for instance, we have a PVC piping down and the water table is only about 2.5, 3 feet below that. So whatever you put down there is going to grow, but it's just not going to root properly. So it's the top side that needs, like, we want to put trees, caraganas, and all the fruit trees and stuff up there. So that's where I want to run water to and stuff like that. And I'll just do that like a little Honda motor. I want to use PVC piping just to push it through, like on a 2-inch hose into the creek, and just 1-inch hose for pressure, and run it to sections and just turn sections off, and not all summer long. Like, do it once a week maybe for, if the creek gets too low, I plan not to use it because the water we found in the stream underground that just goes through my property, and actually I can show you exactly where the stream goes. The stream I found goes from right about here, through here, up, around, and into this natural spring here, and it comes from a natural spring over here. And the water we found, we did one well for the first property already right about here, and we found that it's at about, it was the weakest of the test wells we drilled, and it came in anywhere between 15 and 25 gallons per minute. So the rest are supposed to be even better than that. So I can use that as well if I have to, because on the property for the farmland, there is a spot right there to drill, one there, and one there. So if I had to, I could actually just drill a second well and use that well as well to feed my my crop and stuff like that. I'm not afraid to do that either. I would just like some access to the creek water to do some of the watering.
Becky, go ahead.
I was just going to make a suggestion if it would help we could add a condition that says something like we'll verify that the water rights stay with the remnant agricultural parcel, or the license, sorry.
that was the plan as well.
Yeah, my concern is losing potentially irrigated land and I know this is a small parcel and I'm probably picking at this unnecessarily, but I mean, if our policy is to kind of try and prevent the loss of irrigation and cultivated and good, cultivatable land. I don't see that as a problem. I mean, water licenses are transferable and he could sell it to somebody along the creek at any time anyways, so it's really, I think that might be a moot point. And the main reason I asked him what his position was, because if you're like third or fourth position on that water license hierarchy, he's not getting much water anyways, because I think Schneider's have the first up the creek. So, like I said, it may be a moot point.
Yeah, I've been watching the creek all summer long because I've had the same concerns as you do. I don't want to run a creek low or too low. I'm a hunter and a fisherman, and I understand all that kind of stuff. And from what I've seen at the creek right now, I've got about 4 feet of water going through the creek right now as we speak, right along the side of that parcel. Some places a little deeper, some places a little higher, of course. And I don't want to use more than I need to. I have no intentions of that. I just want to use what I need to grow what me and my wife plan to grow out there. And the stuff that you see south that you're concerned about that they were you say they might have been irrigated, it was never irrigated. It was just used as pasture for horses. It was just a horse stable at one time, I believe. And the north pasture is what was actually the irrigated stuff, which is where I plan to keep the irrigation going.
And there's nothing saying you can't use your 17 acre feet to go, 8.5 acres at 2 feet. You know what I mean? That number is not necessarily tied to acres like water rights are. So it's not our purview how you use your water and your water license. But our purview is to make sure that we're not losing viable agricultural land to residential subdivisions. That's what my concern is. So.
You wouldn't be, from my understanding, that land hasn't been used in 8 to 10 years. From what I've heard from the former owners and from all that stuff, it hasn't been used properly in, 8 years minimum, 10 to 12 years maximum.
All right, any other questions? Anybody else have additions or questions?
And I am a former farmer myself, so I understand exactly what you're saying.
Michelle, go ahead.
I'll move approval.
Okay, so Michelle moves approval of subdivision application at 23 CY10 with conditions as presented. All those in favor? Carried. So your subdivision has been approved, subject to meeting conditions which were previously discussed. The county will now mail you a copy of your approval, and you're advised to begin working towards having the area subdivided area surveyed if you have not already done so. You have 1 year from the subdivision's approval date to have met all of the conditions presented and to have the survey plan submitted to Alberta Land Titles for registration of the separate titles. If you have any further questions, you can contact the planner after today's meeting.
Sounds good, and you'll probably have those in a couple of months if we can keep a good winter and a good fall.
Good. Thanks, Mr. Harrison.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we'll step back in time a little bit to our 10:30 appointment. So creation of 23 CY08, creation of agricultural parcel. Do we have a representative here from Mr. Nichols? Good morning.
Morning, everyone.
So yes, you got the red button figured out. That's good. And you're Noah Nichols, are you? Okay. All right. So this is subdivision application 23 CY08. Becky, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So 23 CY08 is located along Highway 1, approximately 1.3 kilometers east of the hamlet of Dunmore boundary. And this is southeast 712-4 west of the 4th. And it's to subdivide a 9.97 hectare agricultural parcel cut off from the remainder of the agricultural title by the CPR right-of-way to create a separate title. The owner of the property is Cabin Ranch Limited, and applying on their behalf is Global Ramax Surveys, and this is an agricultural subdivision. This application is intended to subdivide a 9.97 hectare or 24.63 acre agricultural parcel cut off from the remainder of the title by the CPR Railway to create a separate title. The purpose of the subdivision is for family succession planning. The agricultural title contains dry land pasture and is 45.61 hectares or 112.7 acres in size. The property is located along an undeveloped portion of Range Road 45 and is adjacent to Highway 1. There are no oil or gas wells in proximity to the proposed subdivision. The area of the proposed subdivision is currently contained on the same Alberta land title as the remnant lands north of the railroad tracks. The existing agricultural title to the north gains direct and immediate access from Township Road 121A. The proposed subdivision to the south gains access from an existing access right-of-way plan and easement that is registered on the Alberta land title. The proposed subdivision is within the sand and gravel resource area of the Tri-Area Intermunicipal Development Plan, as well as the Dunmore Master Area Structure Plan, and the proposed subdivision is outside of the hamlet of Dunmore boundary. The South Saskatchewan Regional Plan states that the agricultural industry is the #1 renewable and sustainable resource in the South Saskatchewan region and will continue to generate substantial social, economic, and environmental benefits into the future. Section 663 of the Municipal Government Act states that a subdivision authority may require the owner of a parcel of land that is subject of a proposed subdivision to provide reserve land or money in place of reserve. Part 2.9 Road Access of the Subdivision Regulations of the Municipal Government Act states that every proposed subdivision must provide direct access to a road or lawful means of access satisfactory to the subdivision authority to each lot that is created. Part 14, Distance from a Highway of the Subdivision Regulations of the Municipal Government Act states that subject to Section 16, a subdivision authority shall not, in a municipality other than a city, approve an application for subdivision if the lands that are subject of the application are within 1.6 kilometers of the center line of a highway right-of-way, unless the land is contained within an area structure plan satisfactory to the Minister of Transportation and the proposed use of land is permitted under that plan. Section 2.12, Sand and Gravel Resource Area of the Tri-Area Intermunicipal Development Plan states that the intent of the area is to protect the sand and gravel resources for extraction and discourage potentially conflicting land uses in the vicinity from developing until such time as the resource has been reclaimed to its former equivalent use. Section 4.1.20, Subdivision in the Tri-Area IDP of the Municipal Development Plan states that the county may support the subdivision of an agricultural parcel that is fragmented by natural or man-made circumstances if the subdivided parcel can demonstrate legal and physical access to a public road and conforms to the minimum parcel size requirements in the land use bylaw and complies with the county's design guidelines and construction standards. And Section 4.1.24, Subdivision in the Tri-Area IDP of the Municipal Development Plan, states that the county shall follow all applicable policies within the Tri-Area IDP related to subdivision of the lands within the Tri-Area IDP boundary. Section 5.1, Development Concept of the Dunmore Master Area Structure Plan states that the concept recognizes the established pattern within the existing hamlet and integrates compatible and complementary land uses to complete an urban community while maintaining a distinct hamlet character. And utility easements may be required between the proposed parcel and the remainder of the agricultural title. We circulated the application, and Cypress County Finances replied that there are no local improvements associated with this parcel. Cypress County Public Works replied that further impact assessment is recommended. The proposed subdivision may or may not affect the subcatchment areas and natural drainage route as per the Dunmore Stormwater Master Plan. Cypress County Utilities replied that they have no concerns. Cypress County Planning and Development replied that the proposed agricultural subdivision is resulting from the railway right-of-way causing an involuntary severance from the remainder of the quarter section. While the proposed subdivision area does not have an existing access approach from the highway or the undeveloped road allowance, legal access is established. In addition, there is an existing access right-of-way plan and agreement extending from the east, which provides physical access to the parcel. The proposal complies with the sand and resource area of the Tri-Area Intermunicipal Development Plan, Section 4.1.20 of the Municipal Development Plan, and Section 5.1 of the Dunmore Master Area Structure Plan. The proposed subdivision area is outside of the Gasoline Alley Area Structure Plan. Apex Utilities replied that they have no objection to the proposed subdivision. They wish to advise that any relocation of existing facilities will be at the expense of the developer, and payment of contributions required for new gas facilities will be the responsibility of the developer. TELUS replied that they have no objection to the proposed subdivision. City of Medicine Hat Environment, Land, and Government Relations Department replied that they have reviewed the proposed subdivision and offers the following comments. Surface improvements are not permitted within the City of Medicine Hat pipeline utility right-of-way and within 100 meters of any City of Medicine Hat wellhead unless the subdivision or landowner applies to and receives approval from the Alberta Energy Regulator and the city for a setback reduction. And any ground disturbances or surface improvements within 30 meters of any City of Medicine Hat gas pipeline or within 100 meters of any gas well will require a crossing or proximity agreement. City of Medicine Hat Electric replied that they have no concerns as the proposed subdivision is outside of their service area. City of Medicine Hat Planning and Development Services replied that they have no concerns. The Town of Redcliffe replied that they have reviewed the proposed subdivision and offers no comments. Alberta Transportation replied that the requirements of Section 18 are not met. The department anticipates minimal impact on the highway from this proposal. Pursuant to Section 21 of the regulation, Alberta Transportation grants approval for the subdivision authority to vary the requirements of Section 18 of the regulation. The requirements of Section 19 are not met. There is no direct access to the highway, and there is sufficient local road access to the subdivision and adjacent lands. Pursuant to Section 21 of the regulation, Alberta Transportation grants approval for the subdivision authority to vary the requirements of Section 19 of the regulation. The department expects that the municipality will mitigate the impacts of traffic generated by developments approved on the local road connections to the highway system, pursuant to Policy 7 of the Provincial Land Use Policies and Section 618.4 of the Municipal Government Act. The Cypress County Assessor provided a market value assessment rate of $18,119.79 per hectare for money in place of municipal reserve purposes. And letters have been received from adjacent landowners regarding concerns about soil and air contamination that could result from the proposed subdivision. Those letters have been included as part of the report. And I did make a note that we identified that the concerns raised relate to a potential future development on another site located further west and owned by Renewable U. This application is merely intended for estate planning purposes and is not anticipated to be impacted by the future development. So that takes me to my recommendation, which is approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, the developer is required to make a payment to the county for money in place of municipal reserve for 9.97 hectares at a rate of $1,811.79 per hectare, being 10% of the appraised market value of $18,119.79 per hectare. The payment is to be submitted to the county prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta Land Titles. And number 2, the developer is required to supply copies of any utility right-of-way plans, easements, or agreements which are to be registered as a requirement for any affected utilities to Cypress County prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta Land Titles. And that is my report.
Thank you, Becky. Do you have any, Mr. Nichols, do you have any additions or comments regarding the application?
Nothing in addition to add. It is for estate planning. As mentioned, it's just how the families want to separate their lands. And it's being directed by their accountant and lawyer.
Okay. So the letters, I have a question. The letters that we received regarding the renewable that's not, is that pertaining to this site or is that just?
So the site that they're
got nothing to do
referring
with
to is further to the west.
Okay, okay. And as it sits right now, this dotted line area is held in conjunction with the dotted line area north of the tracks, correct? At this point in time. So there's actually the physical separation at this point. Okay, all right. Good. That's all I need to know. Any other discussion? Motions? Lloyd moves approval of subdivision application 23CY08 with the conditions as presented. All those in favor? Carried. So your subdivision has been approved, subject to meeting the conditions which were previously discussed. The county will now mail you a copy of your subdivision approval. You are advised to begin working towards completing the necessary conditions and make arrangement to have your area surveyed if you have not already done so, which you have. You have 1 year from the subdivision's approval date to have met all of the approval conditions and to have the survey plan submitted to Alberta Land Titles. If you have any further questions, you may contact them after today's meeting. Thank you very much. Now on to the next one. You gonna stay there? Okay. All right, we're gonna have a 5-minute break. I've been requested for a 5-minute break, so we'll recess for 5 minutes. Okay, so Mr. Nichols has joined us again for 23 CY10. Go ahead, Becky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So 23 CY10 is located along Highway 1, approximately 1.3 kilometers east of the hamlet of Dunmore boundary. And it's the south half of 812-4 west of the 4th. The proposal is to subdivide a 34.06 hectare agricultural parcel cut off from the remainder of the title by the CPR Railway to create a separate title. The owner's Cabin Ranch Limited, and applying on their behalf is Global Ramax Surveys. The property is zoned Agricultural District 1, so it's an agricultural subdivision. This application is intended to subdivide a 34.06 hectare or 84.16 acre agricultural parcel cut off from the remainder of the title by the CPR railway to create a separate title. The purpose of the subdivision is for family succession planning, and the agricultural title contains dryland pasture and is 81.2 or 200.87 acres in size. The property is situated between two undeveloped portions of Range Road 44 and Range Road 45 and is adjacent to Highway 1, and there are no oil or gas wells in proximity to the proposed subdivision. The area of the proposed subdivision is currently contained on the same Alberta land title as the remnant lands north of the railroad tracks. The existing agricultural title to the north gains direct and immediate access from Township Road 121A, and the proposed subdivision to the south gains access from an existing approach from Range Road 44. The proposed subdivision is within the sand and gravel resource area of the Tri-Area Intermunicipal Development Plan, as well as the Dunmore Master Area Structure Plan. The proposed subdivision area is outside of the hamlet of Dunmore boundary. The South Saskatchewan Regional Plan states that the agricultural industry is the #1 renewable and sustainable resource in the South Saskatchewan region and will continue to generate substantial social, economic, and environmental benefits into the future. Section 663 of the Municipal Government Act states that a subdivision authority may not require the owner of a parcel of land that is a subject of a proposed subdivision to provide reserve land or money in place of reserve land if the land is to be subdivided into lots of 16 hectares or more and is to be used only for agricultural purposes. Part 2.9 Road Access of the Subdivision Regulations of the Municipal Government Act states that every proposed subdivision must provide direct access to a road or lawful means of access satisfactory to the subdivision authority to each lot that is created. And Part 14, Distance from Highway of the Subdivision Regulations, states that subject to Section 16, a subdivision authority shall not in any municipality other than a city approve an application for subdivision if the lands that are subject of the application are within 1.6 kilometers of the center line of a highway right-of-way, unless the land is contained within an area structure plan satisfactory to the Minister of Transportation and the proposed use of land is permitted under that plan. Section 2.12, Sand and Gravel Resource Area of the Tri-Area Intermunicipal Development Plan states that the intent of the area is to protect the sand and gravel resources for extraction and discourage potentially conflicting land uses in the vicinity from developing until such time as the resource has been reclaimed to its former equivalent use. Section 4.1.20, Subdivision in the Tri-Area IDP of the Municipal Development Plan states that the county may support the subdivision of an agricultural parcel that is fragmented by natural or man-made circumstances if the subdivided parcel can demonstrate legal and physical access to a public road and conforms to the minimum parcel size requirements in the land use bylaw and complies with the county's design guidelines and construction standards. Section 4.1.24, Subdivision in the Tri-Area IDP of the Municipal Development Plan states that the county shall follow all applicable policies within the Tri-Area IDP related to subdivision of the lands within the Tri-Area IDP boundary. Section 5.1, Development Concept of the Dunmore Master Area Structure Plan states that the concept recognizes the established pattern within the existing hamlet and integrates compatible and complementary land uses to complete an urban community while maintaining a distinct hamlet character. And utility easements may be required between the proposed parcel and the remainder of the agricultural title. We circulated the application. Cypress County Finances replied that there are no local improvements associated with this parcel. Cypress County Public Works replied that the proposed subdivision is a low area and is part of the hamlet of Dunmore and area drainage system. There are 3 major culverts crossing the CPR tracks to drain into a wetland on the north side of the tracks. Cypress County Utilities replied that they had no conflicts or comments. Cypress County Planning and Development replied that the proposed agricultural subdivision is resulting from the railway right-of-way, causing involuntary severance from the remainder of the quarter section. The proposal complies with the sand and resource area of the Tri-Area Intermunicipal Development Plan, Section 4.1.20 of the Municipal Development Plan, and Section 5.1 of the Dunmore Master Area Structure Plan. The proposed subdivision area is outside of the Gasoline Alley Area Structure Plan. Fortis Alberta replied that they are the distribution wire service provider for the area and that no easement is required. TELUS replied that they have no objection to the proposed subdivision. Apex Utilities replied that they have no objection to the proposed subdivision. They wish to advise that any relocation of existing facilities will be at the expense of the developer, and payment of contributions required for new gas facilities will be the responsibility of the developer. Alberta Historical Resources replied that they have reviewed the caption subdivision application and have determined that in this instance, formal Historical Resources Act approval is not necessary, and submission of a Historic Resources application is not required. However, any proposed future subdivision development in Section 8.12.4 west of the 4th will require Historical Resources Act approval prior to development proceeding. Ross Creek Irrigation District replied that they do not have any infrastructure or irrigable lands in the aforementioned subdivision. City of Medicine Hat Environment, Land and Gas Production Department replied that they have reviewed the proposed subdivision and offers the following comments. Surface improvements are not permitted within the City of Medicine Hat pipeline utility right-of-way and within 100 meters of any City of Medicine Hat wellhead unless the subdivision or landowner applies to and receives approval from the Alberta Energy Regulator and the city for a setback reduction. And any ground disturbances or surface improvements within 30 meters of any City of Medicine Hat gas pipeline or within 100 meters of any gas wells will require a crossing or proximity agreement. Almost there. City of Medicine Hat Planning and Development Services replied that they have no concerns. The town of Redcliffe replied that they offer no comments. Alberta Transportation replied that the requirements of Section 18 are not met. The department anticipates minimal impact on the highway from this proposal. Pursuant to Section 21 of the regulation, Alberta Transportation grants approval for the subdivision authority to vary the requirements of Section 18 of the regulation. The requirements of Section 19 are not met. There is no direct access to the highway, and there is sufficient local road access to the subdivision and adjacent lands. Pursuant to Section 21 of the regulation, Alberta Transportation grants approval for the subdivision authority to vary the requirements of Section 19 of the regulation. The applicant is advised that Highway 1 and 3 form an integral part of the national highway system, of which the ultimate service classification is freeway. Given this, Alberta Transportation's long-range freeway access management plans include a realignment of Highways 1 and 3 in the vicinity of Medicine Hat. The timing of the realignment has yet to be determined, however, and to reiterate at this juncture is considered to be long-range. To ensure that the future realignment plans are not unduly compromised, any development on the lands will require the benefit of a development permit or of a permit from Alberta Transportation. This requirement is outlined in the Highways Development and Protection Act. And the department expects that the municipality will mitigate the impacts of traffic generated by developments approved on the local road connections to the highway system pursuant to Policy 7 of the Provincial Land Use Policies and Section 618.4 of the Municipal Government Act. And similar to the last, we did receive letters from adjacent landowners regarding concerns about soil and air contamination that could result from the proposed subdivision. Those letters have been included as part of the report. And as I mentioned before, it is identified that the concerns raised relate to a potential future development on another site located further west and owned by Renewable U. This application is merely intended for estate planning purposes and is not anticipated to be impacted by the future development. Moving on to my recommendation, it is approval subject to just one condition. It's our standard condition. The developer is required to supply copies of any utility right-of-way plans, easements, and/or agreements, which are to be registered as a requirement for any affected utilities to Cypress County prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta Land Titles. And that is my report.
Thank you, Becky. Mr. Nichols, do you have any response to or input? Okay, all right. Okay, so discussion, for discussion or motions? Same as last. Yeah. She needs to be on the minutes. Okay. Amanda moves approval of 23 CY10 with conditions as presented. All those in favor? Carried. Once again, your subdivision has been approved. Subject to meeting the conditions which were previously discussed, the county will mail you a copy of your subdivision approval. You're advised to begin working towards completing the necessary conditions and having the area subdivided if you have not surveyed, if you have not already done so. You have 1 year from the subdivision approval date to have met all of the approval conditions and to have the survey plan submitted to Alberta Land Titles for the registration of a separate title. If you have any further questions, you may contact the planner after today's meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for your time.
I think Sabra is here. Sabra, can you come up and take one of the chairs, please? Morning, Sabra. Okay, thank you for your patience. I just read the letters that were submitted to us. Okay, so this is development permit 23 CY 155, Sabra Owens. Aaron, do you want to take away on this one?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant has submitted a development application for the Municipal Planning Commission's consideration for a temporary residence use at the subject site. The applicant wishes to live on site in a trailer on a temporary basis until a permanent residence is developed in the future. The reason for living in the site would be for caretaker security purposes. The applicant proposes to reside in the trailer between the months of September to October 31st, 2023, and then again between March 2024 and October 2024. The projected timeline for making the existing house habitable is fall 2024. Temporary accommodation is a Class 2 discretionary use in the Hamlet Industrial District, which is why we're bringing this before MPC. A similar request for the site was brought to MPC at the October 11th, 2022 meeting. That application consisted of storage of 2 trailers, antique cars, and an on-site owner-occupied trailer for caretaking purposes. The application received non-support from the Commission at the time and was refused. Under Section 16.6.9 of Land Use Bylaw 2209/09, if an application is refused, the Development Authority will not accept the same development permit application for at least 6 months following the decision. Over 6 months have passed since that previous decision by MPC. During the intervening time, an RV vehicle storage use was approved on the subject site on October 17, 2022 as development permit 22/251. The development permit was issued as a permitted use and conditions imposed included building an 8-foot-high fence to be constructed by October 30th, 2024, annual review of the permit, a maximum number of trailers and vehicles allowed on the site, and a condition to prohibit occupation of any RV or travel trailer on the site. In early August of 2023, the applicant contacted the county and proposed to inhabit a travel trailer on the site, and a development permit application was submitted for consideration. The applicant has indicated that water will be brought to the site and sewer will be disposed of via an on-site septic tank. The trailer is proposed to be located at the rear of the site behind the existing home that is currently being renovated. The proposed location of the temporary accommodation is compliant with the required setbacks for the Hamlet Industrial District in the land use bylaw. To date, the county has received one complaint from an adjacent residential landowner concerning the sightliness of the property. In accordance with section 16.6.1 of the land use bylaw, the Development Authority shall review each development permit application and determine its compliance with this bylaw. When a development permit application includes variance requests or discretionary uses, the Development Authority shall assess the application as outlined based on the following criteria as section 640 sub 6 of the MGA. A variance cannot unduly interfere with the amenities of the neighborhood or materially interfere with the effect, use, enjoyment, or value of neighboring parcels of land. And a variance cannot, it needs to conform to the bylaw for the prescribed use of that land. Relevant legislation, Land Use Bylaw 2022/09. The proposal for a temporary accommodation is a Class 2 discretionary use in the Hamlet Industrial District, which require MPC's consideration. A temporary accommodation is defined by the Land Use Bylaw as means accommodations that do not meet the requirements of the Alberta Building Code and/or CSA for permanent dwelling, and instead is meant to provide accommodation seasonally or on a temporary basis. This includes mobile homes, park models, cabins, etc. Section 12.16.1 and Section 12.16.2 of the Land Use Bylaw do not allow the use of a recreational vehicle as a permanent dwelling. No structures accessory to the recreational vehicle shall be used as sleeping quarters unless it meets the Alberta Building Code and regulations related to the district. Section 22.1 of the Land Use Bylaw defines a recreational vehicles as a means portable structure intended to be carried on a vehicle or to be transported on its own wheels to provide temporary living accommodation for travel, recreational purposes, and includes such vehicles as a motorhome, a camper, a travel trailer, tent trailer, and a boat, but does not include a mobile home. The proposal is compliant with the 7 persons area structure plan. This particular site is identified as being for industrial use, and that is what its main use of the site is. The applicant recently installed a farm hydrant / sample station with a 1-inch garden hose for on-site fire suppression. The hydrant is metered and therefore consumption is being monitored, and that was approved by Public Works. We received just before the this presentation 5 letters of support from people in the immediate vicinity of the proposed use. So based on the land use bylaw, our first recommendation would be for refusal because it does not comply with section 12.16.1 of the land use bylaw 2022/09. And the alternative motion would be for approval. I do have some photographs that have been taken of the site. This is what the travel trailer looks like. It's the same one that was proposed back in 2022. And do we have any pictures of what the site looked like previously? Okay, so this is what the site looked like way back in October 2022. So here's Railway Street. We're looking at the site. If we go to the next picture, okay, that's on Leonard Street, looking towards the site. And the next one, okay, it's another. And this is what the site used to look like. It used to have weeds. The weeds were pretty tall. They're up past my knees. And if we go on to the next picture, yeah, so very tall weeds, kind of messy looking. And if we go to the current photos, we can see, okay, this is a photograph of the back alley looking east, and there's a rear property line there. Next one, that's where the septic tank is on the site. It's behind the existing house. And then the next one, we're looking east. And if you notice, the grass has all been cut. It's been maintained. And the proposed trailer site is right where that arrow is. And then we're looking west from the back alley. The site is well vegetated. It's got some screening from natural vegetation. And this is what the site looks like at the intersection of Leonard and Railway Street. And that trailer, it's shown at the side of the house. It's going to be moved to the back. Okay, here's another photograph showing the vegetation of the site. Another photo looking northwest, looking north. Another one looking northeast. Okay, we're looking southwest there at a shop building that's on the site. Then we're looking west towards where semi-trailers are stored and where the new fence has been put up to contain that storage. And we're looking east on the site where the proposed travel trailer will be placed. Looking northwest again. Looking north from the road, you can see the storage with the fence around it. Yeah, so we move on to the next one. So the site for the travel trailer will be behind the existing house, and it'll be moved there. And that's what it looks like at the moment. And if we go on to the next photo, that's it for photos. Okay, Mr. Chairman, this concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Saba, would you like to speak to your application at this time?
I'd like to know a little bit about who made the complaint and what the date was on that complaint. Because when I first started moving into the property, was the middle of November, December, and it was snow on the property and we had trouble. We just parked everything to keep it off the road. Since then, it's all been picked up, straightened out, organized, and it's even been more organized since these pictures were taken a couple weeks ago. And the fence is up and secure. I'm not having vandalism coming around anymore. Prior to the fence up, I had windshields smashed. One of them is over $1,000 to replace. So the fence was a major thing. And then the house we've torn down. You've seen a pile of the decay in the front property there on one of the photos. And that's all been hauled away now, and it's all been cleaned up. And like the grass has been upkept for fire hazard. Where we had to remove it, we had a big hole where the basement had collapsed in, and it has all been filled in with fill. I have some rocks that need picking, but other than that, that's pretty much. I've been doing work on it as much as I could possibly do my physical self. And then I had a friend come help me with heavy machinery to remove parts of the house that were bad, and we still have more to do yet.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I commend you with what you've done with the property. By the pictures, it looks good. My question is, have you been residing there since the application was declined?
On and off, yes, because I didn't have a place to drive to go in. I didn't have the funds.
Okay.
And then we secured
do you have any, I guess we don't have any photos of the progress that you've made on the house?
Do we have any photos of that? Okay.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Mr. Chairman, we don't have any photos with us regarding the house. However, some portions of the house have been removed as part of a maintenance process for the building.
Okay. Is the house,
Mr. Chairman, can we ask for Zabra to put her mic on, please?
okay.
Sorry.
Can the house be salvaged at this point in time?
Portion of it, yes, it can be. We have taken away everything that was collapsed and rotten, where the floor was all gone. The part of the wood house now is sound. It needs a new roof and some windows and doors that I'm attempting to get a grant for right now. The cinder block wall, three-sided part of the house is very much up to strength and up to no problem whatsoever, and it needs part of a roof also. And by next fall, I hope to be living in part of the house and then do the rest of the work from inside is what my plan is.
Yeah, have you taken permits out to do the renovations and repair and get the house back into order?
Not at this time. I was informed that I didn't need a permit to dismantle it. And I will be starting probably in the spring to do the upgrades, and I understand I will need a permit for that.
Open the floor up to discussion. Nigel?
First, I got a clarification from the staff on their recommended motion. It says the proposal does not comply with the section 1216.1 of the bylaw. I know 1216.1 says you can't have an RV as a permanent residence, but this is intended to be a temporary residence with a defined time frame, unlike last time. Perhaps you can clarify that for me?
Through the chair, that is correct. That section of the land use bylaw does talk about permanent occupancy, whereas what the applicant is proposing is seasonal.
That's a good point. Well raised. Go ahead, Dan.
Even though that's raised, I question the camper. It's a car hauler, not a camper, so for living in, it's not quite adequate to what we're looking at. Oops.
You done?
Yep.
Kayleen, did you have something to say?
I was just going to clarify also, Mr. Chairman. So 12.16.1 says that an RV shall not be used as a permanent dwelling, but then 12.16.2 also says that no structure accessory to an RV shall be used as sleeping corridors. So I think that's where the recommendation was coming from, is collectively 12.16.1 as well as 12.16.2.
So the septic tank that's there, was that installed or did you install that?
It was there, and I had it pumped out and cleaned, and we have it functioning now.
And your toy hauler is connected to that at this time?
No, not at this time. I have nothing connected to it, no water, no power. Everything I do is on generator, and I carry the water in. It is a toy hauler, yes, but the first 25 feet is fifth wheel. It's a 48-foot unit. And I had planned on living in it to retire, which you shot me down last year with because of whatever reasons were involved. It was a camper. But I needed to stay in to finish the renovations on the house, that I can move into it. It has hot and cold running water capabilities. It has shower, 4-piece bath, has a hot tub. It has a full bed area. It'll sleep 6 people if it had to. Like, we're not just talking about a 12-foot piece of trailer here. We're talking about a massive unit.
So do you have power to the site, or you use?
I'm using generator power right now. I have a generator backup on my power supply.
There's no power service?
The power is to the building, but the meter has not been installed. I have to get an electrician out to approve the box, that if it's up to standard, and if it is, that'll come probably in the spring, because I couldn't afford to pay for the hydro hookup now and then just sit dormant all winter. So in the spring, we'll have it set up that we can have a portable power system to run for tools and the interior work that needs to be done.
Do you have water service to that lot?
I do now, yes. I have a farm hydrant, been checked in and watered, been approved, and it's been metered.
Okay.
It was brought in for fire suppress because we had a couple close calls tearing down, and I didn't feel comfortable with it. At that point, I was bringing water in blue jugs, like the camper jug style, from a neighbor.
These letters presented, were they from all of your neighbors?
The closest ones right around me, yes.
Okay. Aaron, go
Chairman,
ahead.
we do have a map available showing the location of where the letters came from, and I believe Ingrid has it shown on the screen there. So there's two directly behind and some over to the west of the site.
Can you zoom in on that a little bit? So two are adjacent neighbors then, if I see that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Who had the complaint? Do we
Well,
know
that's
that?
not, no, that's not public knowledge.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, no. Go ahead, Amanda.
Is 7 persons, are they all on septic tanks? Is every home on a septic tank? They have sewer and 7 persons?
No, there is, Amanda, there is also a sewer system available on the property. It goes through a portion of my property, but I haven't hooked up to it.
Will the home be hooked up to it?
Possibly.
Okay.
I have to say possibly now because it's still up in the air. We've got the septic system functioning. It's big enough and designed for a 3-bedroom home. So it should be more than fine for a 2-bedroom home.
And the water that you brought to the property, is that drinkable or are you just using that for fire suppressed?
It's for fire right now. I've used some of the water to flush out the sewer system and in the septic system to make sure we got it working and clean. And it is on meter. It will be removed here at the end of October, the 1st of November, so it doesn't freeze. And then next spring, it'll come back in and come on.
It's
And
temporary
then we
water?
will go from there.
And then my last question is, there's a time frame over the winter, November, December, January, February, and that you're not going to be in the,
I will be down probably on the weekends just to monitor that everything is good and it's not being vandalized.
okay, so it'll be vacant over the
Yes.
winter.
And with the people that live around there, the 5 for sure homes, will keep an eye on it for me, which they do now when I'm not there.
Just one question before we go. Do you intend on living there in the weekends when you come down to see it?
I might spend the night there and then be able to leave again.
Okay. Carolyn, go ahead.
Just for clarification, so as per the water and wastewater bylaw, it is mandatory to hook up to the water system in a hamlet.
And the sewer
Residents.
system. And the sewer system.
Yes, water and wastewater, yes.
So the sewer system would not be permitted, or is it there?
As per the bylaw is not, I'd have to defer to Kayleen on that one, if you're allowed to have a septic tank there. But under the bylaw that we have, it's, the home needs to be hooked up to the wastewater and water. If, yeah, available.
So do you have any opposition to hooking up your home to the wastewater and sewer for the hamlet?
No, I don't think I do. I'd like to know more about it. I'd like to be able to read more about what's available, because my place is not the only place in Seven Persons that has a septic system. And I know that from talking to other people there. So I don't know.
Kayleen, go ahead.
So in relation to the water and sewer bylaw, Terrell's correct that where you're located within a hamlet and the service is available, the water and wastewater bylaw requires you to connect to the service. So what would happen is when Sabra comes in for a development permit for the construction of the home or for the renovation of the home, it would then trigger compliance with that water and sewer bylaw. So there has to be the connection, not necessarily that you have to use it, but there has to be a connection. In the event that the landowner sells, we don't want the onus to be on the county to have to pay for that connection for them. So that's why we require that. And any variance from that water and sewer bylaw has to be approved by council. So that would be a requirement once she applies for a permanent residence.
I guess we don't have anybody living in temporary residences, so that my next question is irrelevant. So I guess the intent of that is to have everybody living in a dwelling in a hamlet connected and, okay. All right. Okay. So, but also on, does weekends include occupancy? Like if, now she's. I see. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, we're discussing the application, so we should have our mics on.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Your mic's on, she's just not, yeah, okay.
Wasn't, yeah, I'm
just
sorry,
speak
I
into
wasn't, no.
please, yeah.
Yeah, so accounting 8 months plus the weekends, and then she's, and it's my understanding that she's counting on a grant for funding. So that's, it's just not a guarantee. So she was looking into 2024 to be complete. And so if the funding was in place, I'd be a little bit more comfortable, but a grant is kind of vague.
So just for clarity, we do have a temporary occupancy, but that lot is in Seven Persons, but that lot is hooked up, there's functioning water and sewer and power. And so we do have that, and that was I think, what was that, a 3-month or 4-month permit? Do you recall what that one was for the
Yeah, that one was subject to a 1-year expiry.
okay, so it's a 1 year, okay. Go ahead.
That was an actual trailer that was winterized and made for that. The car hauler is not something that's winterized to be.
Right.
I'm just fearful that it's not the proper combination. That's I guess with that, I'd make the motion that was recommended not to go forward.
Okay, so Dan recommends refusal of development permit 23/155 for reasons stated. All those in favor of Refusal? Opposed? Carried. Unfortunately, your development application has been refused because it does not comply with the county's land use bylaw. A copy of the refusal notice will be mailed to you. You will have the ability to appeal the refusal decision and to the Development Appeal Board by following the instructions on the notice you will receive. Please be aware that you will have 3 weeks from the date of the notice to file your appeal. If you have further questions, you may contact the development officer to discuss them after today's meeting.
Why am I being denied? Because I'm not prepared to hook up the sewer system because it's 18 feet in the ground, to my knowledge. I'm not sure where it is on the property. I've been only told it's there, and I haven't found it yet.
I believe it was refused due to the fact that the proposed dwelling that you wish to live in for 6 to 8 months of the year is not, does not comply with the essence of the bylaw.
Why? Why? It's a $43,000 fifth wheel. It's got everything in it your home has got in it. Maybe
It's
even
not hooked up to
more.
water and sewer, and it's not winterized. So that's.
It
that's
is
the-
winterizable if I wanted to close it in on the bottom. But I chose not to because I have it winterized already, and I'm not using anything that way with it.
So we have to make decisions based on what is happening, not what is proposed to happen. And so as the property currently sits, that's the rationale, correct me if I'm wrong, for that motion. We have to make sure that we're making consistent decisions within the community based on what's actually there and what's happening with that property, not what might be happening down the road. We can't see what might be happening and make decisions based on
Well,
it.
can you not tell from the few months that I've been there working myself? Can you not see the improvement? I'll pay your gas. Take a drive out there and see the conditions that I have changed.
I don't think your improvement of the property is in dispute at this point in time. And as my initial statement said, I think I admire what you've done out there. I think you've done an excellent job of taking
thank
care
you.
of that lot. And it's not based on that. It's not based on what you're doing or anything like that. It's based on our standards in the community and what we have to maintain as far as complying with the bylaw. And we have to, as a planning commission, we have to comply with bylaws. And that's the rationale for the decision. Again, this is appealable, and as I stated, you have 21 days to appeal it. Go ahead, Kayleen.
I was just going to mention, Mr. Chairman, if Sabra has a few minutes to stay behind, Aaron and I could come and chat with Sabra about what our potential next steps are in terms of applying to the SDAB for a review of the decision. As the applicant, that is, of course, her right if there's something of dispute that it does comply with the bylaw. So we can chat with you about the next process if you're wanting to go that route. However, the decision of the MPC today was refusal, so the appropriate route now would be to apply to the appeal board.
Thank you. Because Mr. Hamilton has been at my property. Yes, you were. You were there talking to the Robert Steniford that was helping me with the backhoe. So I know you. I've seen you on my property, so I feel this has been unfair.
Well, I'm sorry you feel that way, Sabra. Like I said, there is an appeal process that you can go through in your do that process. Thank you. Okay, next meeting date, Tuesday, October 10th. Nobody has problems with that, I would assume? If so, you're okay with? Okay, so meeting will be next October 10th. Adjourn the meeting.